Okay, so this is the agenda of today's session. We'll start with the introduction. I'll show you guys where to write the code, how do you record macros, how do you edit them, how do you run them, some bit of programming logic, which is very simple to understand, followed by how do you manage the code, how do you comment code, then understanding some other elements of coding like variables. How do you reference to any Excel object like an Excel sheet or an Excel cell from the code? And then last but not the least would be how to make simple decision structures and loop them, which is where the final thing will all come together. This is going to be the structure. So let me first start by showing you a couple of demo tools so that you get a hang of what all can be achieved by using Excel macros. So there's this tool that uh, I have created just to showcase, which sends emails. Uh, Obviously, this can also be done in mail merge, but if you have to do a lot more, for example, if you have to put an attachment and maybe have some other things, you can do it very easily with the help of VBA. And the functionality that I have used basically sends out the emails through Outlook. And this is the email body that has been created that I've written here, and this exactly gets picked up and gets put in the mail. So let me just quickly run this and show you. Are you sure? Yes. So it has opened Outlook and it has created 3 new emails. You can check the email. See, one is my ID with the name Chandni and then Avnish. So, and there was no need to actually display the mail. You could have directly sent it, but since I did not want to send it, I wanted to show it to you. That's the reason why I kept the setting as display. But if I change this from display to send, I've written it in the code that it reads this, and if it is send, it will directly send the email. So there's no need to even display it. Similarly, if you have any attachment, it will put the attachment as well. So that's what you can achieve by writing some small macros. Then I'll show you another one. So this is a a tool that we used to use till about recently to send out pay slips, salary slips, um, and basically for this you obviously need data of employees along with their salary details. This is just dummy data that I populated here, and there is a template for the salary slip. So this is like the template. So if I just run this, I can. So just by clicking on create salary slips, it will create 2 new sheets here, one for this employee and one for this employee with the actual details filled in this template. I'll show you how. Salary slips have been created successfully. You can see employee E001 and E002 with different names. Right? Was very actually this is one of the simplest codes that you can write. One of the simplest tools. And at one click, you can even email the salary slips, not in an Excel format, but in a PDF format. So there is a script written to convert this to a PDF and then send it out. Send. Let me check if it is display. I think it would be display. We can just try and yeah, it's display here. Send. Yes. Again, you can see Outlook. So this is my name. Let me check. Here you go. Right. And same thing if I check the other email and I open this. Here you go. So again, a very simple piece of automation and solves the problem perfectly. I will try to show another tool. Uh, so here's a tool that will, so you can see there are financial statements of multiple companies here, and just at one click it will create this dashboard for every company. So I've created the template and I want the dashboard for all of these companies, and the data of all these companies are here is here in different sheets. So it is in the process of forming new sheets and filling the data in the template format. So Vikrant, I can see your question. Is it possible to integrate Gmail using macro? No, it is not possible. So through Excel, you can only send the email through Outlook, but obviously in Outlook, you can configure your Gmail ID. That solves your problem. See, these are the various companies. And again, it was very simple. It was just reading the data of all those companies from this and this sheet of the respective companies and populating it in the form of the template sheet. So that's how, I mean, these are all the kind of things that you can do. And just to end this on a slightly fun note, I'll show you a tool to play Housey game, Housey or Tambola, right? So this was something that I had created years back, I think about 10, 12 years back.
The next number is 7 and 777.
And I also had the speak functionality on, so it also voices over the number.
The next number is 3 and 131.
So again, uh, if you know the concept of rand between, that has been used here just to basically pick up random numbers between 1 and 90 and eliminate the numbers that have been called out. So that's how simple this has been. I mean, the backend is obviously some code to make it look fancy, like to show the effects and to color the numbers that have been called out, to update these fields. That's a bit of fancy stuff that has been done. Otherwise, it's fairly basic. Okay, now that you know what all can be done, let's start. I'll start showing you maybe talking about file formats. So I'm sure you would have probably used XLSX as the file format, which is the most common file format. But any file, any Excel file in which you've written macros or whichever has macros has to be saved as XLSM. If you save an Excel a macro file as XLSX, the code would go away. So next time you open the file, there'll be no code in that. So the automation will be lost. So you have to make sure that you save it as XLSM. And whichever file is a macro file, I mean, and there is some automation script that you've written in that file, you can only use that automation when the file is open, right? When it is closed, the code is not accessible. But if you save any file as XLAM, which is an add-in, in that case, you can run the code in any open Excel file. So you will actually, I don't know if you've ever used an add-in, but if you look up on the internet, you'll find a lot of free add-ins as well, which you can download and which you can install with Excel, and then that helps save a lot of your time. And the earlier version was XLA, the earlier version of add-in, and the earlier version of Excel was XLS. So XLS had macros and normal Excel both in the same format, but now they've segregated it for higher security. So if you've got an XLSM file, you'd know that this file has code. And be very careful when you open any XLSM file, right? So it could be a kind of a virus as well. You never know. So make sure that the source is a reliable source and only then you open it. Let me check if there is an add-in anywhere that I can show you. No, I don't think I have anything here, but yeah, so add-in can be shown as in the form of another ribbon, another menu in the ribbon, and then in that you can have your functionality. So the same way you can see these, you can create your own. Obviously, that's highly advanced, but you can find add-ins that have a full menu here that can be used. Okay, so let me show you how do you where do you write code. So first of all, I'm sure most of you will not have this developer tab in the ribbon. So to get the developer tab, you can go to Excel options, customize ribbon, and here you can, I think this would be unchecked. So you have to check this. And by the way, you don't need to do this together with me. I mean, just focus your energies right now on the session and then you can look at the recording and try it, on your own. So here you'll have to check this, and then when you hit OK, you'll see the developer tab here. Another way to get there is right click here, anywhere in the ribbon, customize the ribbon, and you'll straight away come here. Right. So in developer tab, there is a Visual Basic button. So you click on it, or there is also a shortcut Alt F11. Okay, yeah, Ankit, I'll zoom a little, no problem. Sorry. Uh, yeah, I hope this is better. Or is it too big? Or is it fine, Ankit? Okay, I'm guessing it's okay. So yeah, so you can click on Visual Basic, or you can use the shortcut Alt F11. You will see something like this opens up. It may or may not have this bar, so it may just look like this. So you will have to click on View, and there is this Project Explorer, which is this part. So you need to make sure that the Project Explorer is visible. And in the Project Explorer, you'll be able to see all your open Excel files. So right now I only have one file open. If I open another file, you can see there are two files open now. So you know where to write your code. So if I want to write my code in this file, I will click anywhere here, and then there is an option to insert a module. So I'll insert a module and then start writing the code. Okay, let me remove these. I'll start fresh. So this is what you will see by default. And if I have to start writing code in this file, or code or macro or VBA, whatever you might want to call it, I'll insert a module here and I'll write code in this module. So this part that has now opened up is the coding window. This is where the macro would be written. So yeah, and there may be few things that I may not tell you because it's too basic for you guys to know. So probably I will sort of try to oversimplify few things. So but yes, if you go to the next level, then you can probably know a lot more things. So I'm going to tell things in a very structured way that is more than enough for you to know at this point in time. Okay, so this is my coding window, and this is how I start writing a macro. I start with sub, and there are few things that you will have to remember, but I would say 90% of the things can be created directly, so you don't need to remember anything of that sort. This is something that you need to remember. So you write a macro you start with sub, which is short for subroutine. Then you give a space, then you give a name to the macro. So like for example, this is the name of the macro that I want to give. There cannot be any spaces or anything. Once I've written the name, I'll hit enter. You can see automatically this would get formed and there would be an end sub. So anything that I write between sub and end sub would be a part of my first macro. And whenever I execute this macro, my first macro, it will run the things that I've written here. So let me write something very basic, message box. Okay, this is also a syntax that you need to know if you want to show a message box. And I want to type something which is static, so I start with the double quotes. Uh, Hello world. Yes. This is what I have written as in my first macro. And I can, if I want, I can run it from here or I can run it from Excel. So I'll run it from Excel this time. And you can see a save button here, right? So when you click on save, it is not going to save this macro as a separate file. This is going to be a part of your Excel SM file. So if I save this, it will save my entire file, right? And there's no need to save it from here. I can just close it. The code would still be there till the time this file is open. Sorry, this is the other file. I'll close this file. Yeah, this file. So I can save it from here and my code has got saved. No need to save every time in the VBA window, Visual Basic Editor. And if I want to run that code, I can click on macros. It will show me the list of macros that are there in this workbook. And I can simply say, since this is the only one, this is already pre-selected, I can click on run and it has just run it. Right? But obviously every time you let's say you give it to somebody else to run it, right? You're not going to ask them to click on macros. You are going to give it, maybe put a button or something, make it easier for them to access it. So there is, in the developer tab, there is an option of insert. In insert, you can, I mean, right now just ignore everything else. You can select the button. Then it will create this drawing tool. Then you can draw the button. And as soon as you draw the button, it will give you an option to assign macro. So I'll click here and hit OK. So now this button is linked to that macro, right? If I have not linked it the first time, I can right click and assign macro even later. Right? I can edit text. I can resize it, do whatever I want. Treat it like a normal, drawing object. Here you go. It's a much better way to run a macro. And there are other ways as well, right? So for example, if you want to give some macro a shortcut, what you can do is select, click on macros, and there's an option. You can just select the macro and click on options, and you can even give it a shortcut key. I mean, obviously you can't give any of the regular shortcuts, so I can, let's say I give Control Q. Okay. So now if I press Control Q, it will run the macro. But only when this file is open. Right? If you press Control Q on any other Excel file, it won't run this. So yes, a lot of ways to run a macro. And one of the ways to run it is also from the Visual Basic Editor directly. So I can click anywhere between sub and end sub. And here there's an option of run. So if I'm writing my code and I want to test something in between, I can just run it here and then it will run it and show me, right? Okay. I hope this much is clear about Visual Basic Editor, where to write code, Project Explorer, so on and so forth. So as I said, you don't need to remember a lot of things in terms of the syntax. If you know some of the basic stuff, I think you can record the rest. So Excel gives this feature that if you perform any operations and you record it, it will create the corresponding code for that. And that is something that you can use later to, you obviously might have to customize it slightly, but that can be used to later perform those operations anywhere else. So I'll give you an example. So I've selected this cell, right? Let me record macro. So, so in the developer tab, there's an option of record macro. You click here, it will by default give a name to the macro. And if you press OK, now whatever action I perform here on the spreadsheet will get recorded. Okay, and let me try to do something. Let me try to first, I'll write something. Excel. Then I will color this. I'll give a background color and a font color. I'll make it bold. Maybe even give borders. Right? This is what I've done. And the code for performing all these operations might have got recorded somewhere. So what I can do is, first I go again to developer, I stop recording first, right? Because I'm done with my recording. Otherwise it will keep recording, till you stop it. Now I go to Visual Basic. You can see that automatically a new module has got inserted here. I can just simply click on the module. It is showing me the code that has got recorded. Don't worry about it. Trust me, even I don't remember this code for borders, this code for font, color, this. I don't remember this. I just record it anytime I need. I just simply record it. Right? So you can see this code has got created. Now, if you want to repeat the same thing again, okay, let me delete this. If I want to repeat the same thing again, what I will do is, first of all, I'll assign the other macro to this button, which is macro 1, the macro that we recorded. Now I am just clicking on macro 1. You can see the same thing has got done again. So we didn't need to remember any of the syntax for bordering, coloring, font color, etc. Nothing. You can simply recreate everything. But yes, obviously you need to know how to make small changes to it, which I'll show you in today's session. Right. Now, let me go a bit into the code. Right. You can write multiple macros in the same module. For every single macro, you don't need to create a new module. So let me just write. Okay. Now, the way this code is read is from top to bottom. So whenever I execute the code, for example, I try to execute the code from this code, right? So I'll press F8. So F8 is the shortcut to go from one line to the next line and so on. I go to the next one, and when I press F8 again, now it will run it, and now it goes to end sub. So this is how the code is run from top to bottom. Now, if you want a particular line to be ignored, which is, let's say, for your reference, say for example, I want to write a comment that this line is for showing a message box. Obviously this will not be understood by the compiler, by Visual Basic, right? And that's the reason why you start with an apostrophe. So whatever you write with an apostrophe, I mean, once there is an apostrophe, the subsequent part of that line will not be read at all, and it will also become green. So if I write a lot of these lines, it's very easy for somebody to distinguish that this is a comment that has been written, right? So, and it's a good practice to write comments everywhere. So if somebody is looking at your code, they should be able to understand what you've done. So it's a good habit to do this. Now let me run this and check if this line got read. F8, F8. See, it skipped this, right? It straight away went here. Right? Okay. So now let me touch upon the concept of variables. Uh, I'm sure everybody must have learnt math at some point, right? In school or in engineering or wherever you, like whatever you did. So you can create any variable. And if anybody here is a software developer, they would know that whenever we create any variables, we have to first initialize them. So that initialization is not compulsory to do in Excel. In fact, for the first couple of years that I coded, I never did this. But now I have a habit of initializing variables. Obviously, it's a good habit to have. But you can totally ignore initializing variables. If you have to learn about it, you can just read about it somewhere. It is done like this. You start with dim, then you write the name of the variable, then as, and then the data type. Something like this. And the name of the variable need not be one letter, it could be anything, it could be my name as well, right? This is totally optional, so you can completely ignore it, no problem. Excel, based on the value you assign to the variable, it will automatically initialize, give it a data type. So I will just use a variable, say x equals 10. I'm giving x the value 10. Okay, then I'm giving y the value 3. Then I do z equals x multiplied by y. Okay, so the value of z would become 30. Message box z. Let's say we do this and we check what happens. I'll run it one by one line by one line. F8, so I'm using the shortcut F8. Right? So variables are very important in your code. I mean, you might want to use it at multiple places. So Nishant, to answer your question regarding indentation, it is a good habit to follow indentation, and you will know when we talk about decision structures and loops. So sometimes there may be nested loops and all that. So it is very easy to understand where your code starts, where it ends, where your loop starts, where it ends, and so on. That's the reason I have a habit of indenting it. And there is no auto indentation in Excel in VBA. You will have to do it manually, right? But there is yeah, so there's a way to automatically comment line. So if I have to, let's say, comment all of these together, I don't have to write an apostrophe everywhere on every line. There is a shortcut to do that. I can select my entire area, and here there's an option of, so I can't see that toolbar, maybe it's not here. So view, toolbars, edit. This is the toolbar. Yeah. So here there is an option of comment block. So the entire block will get commented. If you, let's say, if you've written something wrong but you don't want to delete it, you want to just keep it for your future reference, you can even do that. And if I want to again uncomment all of this, I can simply uncomment the entire block. Okay. So that's the concept of variables. Uh, now we will touch upon the most important part of VBA, of writing macros, is how do you reference, how do you give reference of an Excel object, so like an Excel sheet or an Excel range or a cell. Uh, so this is the part where you need to be really paying attention. So everybody understands that Excel has multiple sheets, right? And here there are cells. These are called columns, these are called rows. And if I have to give reference to, let's say, this cell of this sheet, sheet to C1, I can simply write it as sheets. You need to remember the syntax like for life if you want to create macros. Okay. Note that I have put the name of the sheet in double inverted quotes because it is a name, right? Dot. Let me write range. Again, open brackets. Write the range the way you know it. So C1 is, so you can just write C1. Okay, this is how you give reference to this particular cell. Now, what do you want to do with this cell is what you write after this. So there are multiple properties of each object. This is an object, right? And the most common property that you will use maybe 90-95% of the time is dot value. This is the most important property, dot value. because normally whenever you write code, you're basically manipulating values or maybe color or something, but that's something that can be very easily recorded. You don't even need to remember that. What you need to remember is dot value as the most important property. And let's say if I write equal to macros again in double quotes, right? Because this is a text, it's a string. If I write this code, it will automatically put the value macros here, and we can try this out. I'm going to run it from here itself. F8, F8. See. Now, obviously, there are. This is the most common way, but there are other ways as well. Actually, this is not the most common way. I'll show you the other options of referencing to an Excel sheet and a cell. So, in place of sheet 2, you can also write the sheet number, which obviously which cannot be in double quotes. It is basically the order of sheets, the index of sheets. So this is sheet number 1, this is sheet number 2, this is sheet number 3, irrespective of the name, right? So if I write sheets 3, range C1, it will do the same thing. Okay, delete. I will comment this and only run this. It's been run. See. So this is the index of sheets. Now this is also something that is very useful. I'll show you later. And there is, maybe a simpler option. You can simply write active sheet. If you're only working on one sheet, or your code only works on one sheet, then you can simply write active sheet. It will do the same thing. I will comment this line. Now this will only run this line, right? Delete it. Or let me just put a button. My macro 3. See. So these are the multiple ways to reference to a sheet.
Yes.
I normally use this and this. Is there a way to write this in a better way? Yes, there is. So instead of writing range C1, you can also write something like cells. You open bracket. You first give it a row number and then comma and the column number. So for C1, the row number is 1 and the column number is 3. Not C but 3, the number of the column, right? So 1 comma 3. So this will also perform the same action. Now why is this better than this? Because if you have to perform an operation on multiple columns, it's very difficult to increment it from C to D to E to F, right? There is no logic to increment letters, but there's a very simple logic to increment numbers. You just add 1 to it. That's the reason why now this is the most common way to reference an Excel object. Okay, we'll run this and check. I'll delete it. Click on the button. Here you go. So it's only run this line. Now, just taking one step ahead, if you have say 2 workbooks which are open, you can even from one workbook, you can reference the other workbook's sheet as well. For which, before this, you will write workbooks and the name of the workbook. Say abc.xlsx or whatever the file is. This is how you will reference another sheet of another workbook altogether. Otherwise, if you don't write this, by default, it will always consider the current workbook. In fact, if you don't write the sheet as well, right? If I just write this, it's not wrong. It will by default consider the active sheet only. But it is always a good practice to write the sheet name or the sheet number or whatever. Unless the code that you've written only works on one sheet and there's no other sheet that you have to ever consider, then you can write something like this as well. You can even write something like active cell dot value. Even this can be written. These are all variations, right? This is something that I follow. This. These are all variations that you should know. So yeah, Sushank, if you mention this, the other workbook by this name needs to be open. Okay. Yeah, Gauri, you can just write your question in the chat, no problem. So yeah, you have to keep this workbook open. But normally what I do is, if I have to work on another workbook, I first open that workbook. So I workbooks dot open, then I write the path of the workbook. So C desktop abc dot xlsx. Yeah, so this line will first open that workbook, and then this line can work on the workbook. And then you can even close the workbook like this. So workbooks this dot close. Simple. This is what I normally do if I have to work with multiple different workbooks. Um, yeah, now let me show you one thing. So now obviously I don't have this workbook anywhere open, right? Let me try to run this code and check what happens. See, it has given me an error, a runtime error 9 subscript out of range. That means it has not identified this. I can either end it, or normally obviously what I do is I click on debug. So it shows me which line has error. So it has highlighted that this is the line that has error. So now I need to check if there's anything wrong here. So I normally go and I check if the file is open. If the file is not open, that means I know the error. And if I have to come out of this, I can click on this reset button or the stop button. Now the macro is not running. Otherwise, normally if I run anything and there is an error, I can even fix it here and now. So I can simply, let's say, delete this. And now this will run correctly. I'll hit play, it will continue running. So wherever it stops, I can then continue running, and if I want, I can stop it. So these are all different variations of how do you reference Excel objects. This is very important, and let us look at it once again. Sheets, name of the sheet. So variations to sheet this is the first variation. This is the second variation, which is the number, the index of the sheet or the order of the sheet from the left. Mind you, if I move this here, this now becomes sheet number 1. Okay. Active sheet, to work on the sheet that is currently active. This will work on the active sheet as well. So actually you don't even need to write this. Okay, anybody who has joined late, probably what you guys can do is there's another session at 4 o'clock. It will be similar to this session, so you can join that session. I think you've already missed a fair bit. There's no point joining right now. Okay, these are variations to sheets. Then variations to the cell or the range is this. Range C1 or cells row comma column. The most common property is dot value. Remember this. If you have to work on, if you have to perform an operation on another workbook, this is what you do. You just add the name of the workbook. So it is in a very proper hierarchical manner. You first start with workbook, then sheets, then cells. Or if obviously if you want to simply write active cell, you can even do that. Let me just run this and check. Okay, active cell. So whichever cell is active, it will perform the operation on that cell. So now this cell is active. See. So, yep. Don't worry, I'll be sharing this file with you after the session so you can relook at the code as well. And you know how to uncomment all this, right? You just uncomment the block and keep this commented, otherwise it will throw an error. Okay, so that's about Excel objects. Just one more thing before I move on. Uh, if you want to perform an operation on a bigger range, say range, for example, say the range is this, you can even do that. So when instead of writing range C1, if I write range C1 to F10, it will basically consider this entire block. So normally if I have to do some formatting or highlighting, I first select this entire, I sort of reference this entire range, and the way the range is highlighted is like this. Right? It's the same way as, you know, if I write some macro, right? If I write a formula, see the syntax here. It's the same way you have to write in VBA as well. Right? Okay. So now let us try to marry two functionalities that we've learned today. One is Excel object referencing, and the other is recording a macro. Right. What we will do is I've just created a new sheet. Let me record a macro to say just give a fill color. Let me just do this much. I'll again go to developer. I'll stop recording. Now if I go to Visual Basic, I can see my recorded code in module 2. Here you go. So if you look at this code carefully, so whenever you record something, it will be a very static code. So for example, this code runs on the selected cell only. If you want, we can check this, we can validate this, right? So say let me insert a button to showcase it better. Macro 2. Yeah, to answer the question of can we make the range dynamic? Yes, we can make the range dynamic. We can insert numbers. I'll be covering this in the next part of the session. Don't worry. So this, I've created a button which basically is going to run macro 2, right? And normally the code that is recorded is extremely static, right? So if I, let's say, select this and click on the button, see it is highlighting this cell. Because the macro was only to change the fill to yellow. It didn't do anything else. So you need to know how to change, this code. And whenever you record, you will see a lot of this word here, selection, which basically means that the selected cell is being referred. If you want to change this to another cell altogether, you can simply replace selection by any of the Excel objects that you want to reference to. So I can simply write something like cells 5 comma 2. Okay. If I don't write anything related to the sheet, it will work on the active sheet, right? So cells 5 comma 2, which cell will it alter? Can you write in comments? If I write this code, yes, that's great. B5. So fifth row and second column, this one. You want to check? See, I'm not selecting this cell. I'm clicking somewhere here. See, it is working on B5. I can obviously write sheet name as well, which is a good way to do this. Yeah. So you should know what changes you have to make to the recorded code so that it basically serves your purpose. And talking about the properties that we were discussing, right? The dot value property. So in this case, you can see the property is called dot interior. But did I remember it? No. I simply recorded it and it gave me the entire code with the property. All I had to do was make this change. So this is how you record code and you make changes to it. You can see a lot of selection here as well in the earlier recorded code. So all that you have to change is you have to change the selection and give the reference to of your respective range or cell. Okay. So let's move ahead. Before I move ahead, I will show you another thing. So there is another small tool that I have created which consolidates data. Uh, Let me show you how to work with multiple files as well. I'm not going to show you the code at this point, but I'll be sharing this tool that you can look at later. Clear data. You can see that there are these columns, right? And uh, I have created few files in a particular format. So let me open file 1 and show you. See, all of these files, file 1, file 2, file 3 that are there in that folder, they have data in this format. So my so data has been collected in a structured way, and there are a number of files that have data like this. Right? Same. And what I want to do is I want to get all the data in rows here. So if there are 10 files, I need 10 rows. And I have written this code in probably less than 5 minutes. I'll show you what it does. So when I click on pull data, it gives an option to select the folder where all the files are there. So this is my folder. I click on OK. It will open each file, it will read the value, and it will paste the value here. And for this, what I needed to do was I had to open those workbooks one by one, and each of the workbooks I had to pull the value from those cells in the respective sheet and then just copy those values here. And the functionality to open this folder picker is something that I got from Google directly. I just typed on Google, I got a code, I copy pasted it. If you want, I'll show you the code as well. See, this is the source. I put the source as well. Obviously, it's my good habit to initialize variables. This is the code that I had got, the folder picker. And this is what I'm actually doing. I'm just getting the values into the output sheet from the input sheet, which I've used as variables. And I think I've probably created this tool for 10, 20 clients. I don't even remember. A lot of companies have this issue of fetching data from multiple files into a single file. And everybody ends up doing it in a manual way, but you can straight away automate this kind of a process. So that's how referencing to a workbook, to a sheet, to a cell is important, right? Okay. Now let's move to the, so we've done till here, right? Now these two are the major things that will help you actually do some fair bit of automation. Uh, or maybe what we can do is, before that, let's try to record some code and see if it works. Say I want to record a code to insert a new sheet. I don't know how to insert a new sheet, so I just record the code. Right? I've inserted a new sheet now. I will stop recording. We'll go to Visual Basic. I will check the code. Module 2. See, very simple. Sheets.add after active sheet. Okay. I will use this code and I will write something. Okay. One thing to remember is, whenever a new sheet is created like this, it becomes the default sheet. Okay. It becomes the active sheet. So what we can do is, if we create a new sheet, say from here, okay, and anything that you want to write on that sheet, so that sheet has now become your active sheet. Okay, so you can simply write active sheet dot cells 1, 1 dot value equals VBA. Sorry, what's wrong here? What's wrong here? Yeah, that's correct. Unless you have this, it will consider this VBA as a variable, and there is no value to VBA, so it will give nothing. It will do blank. Right? Good. Great. So what I've done here is, I've added a new sheet, and then in the new sheet I have put the value VBA in the cell A1, 1, 1. Let's try to run this. I will assign this to the new macro, my macro 4. See, there are only sheets till sheet 3. New sheet has been created. You can see the value here. That's how you keep creating new sheets. And the part where I showed you, right, that I had created templates. Where was it? Say this one. This was the template, right? And as soon as we clicked on this button, it created 2 new sheets with the same template. We can check this again. See, 2 new sheets. So basically, for that, what I did was, I recorded the code, right click, move or copy, create a copy, move to end. This is what I did. And then I changed the name of the sheet to month underscore and the employee code. And then I simply filled the values. I didn't do anything here. This was probably one of the simplest codes ever. I simply filled the values. So you can, instead of adding a new sheet, which is a fresh sheet, you can even copy an existing sheet and copy to a new sheet in the same workbook by using this functionality. Okay, you can record this and you can play with it. Okay. Okay. Now I will go to something which is uh, the most important pillar of writing any logic, that is decision structure. So I'm sure you would have heard of a formula called if, right? So what I will do is I will just write some scores, and if we need to mention a fail or a pass for each of these scores, and say 40 is the passing percentage, passing marks, what you normally do in Excel is you write equals if, right? I think most of you know this. Then you open brackets, then you write your logical condition, which is if this cell is less than 40, comma, value, if it is less than 40, then you want fail, else you want pass. And then you copy this. This is what you do if you have to sort of test a condition in Excel. And this is extremely important in VBA as well. So I think most of the code that I write have an if somewhere or the other. Like for example, this file that we saw, right? So here the code probably has been written, the condition has been written based on this column. So if I select no here, this row will be ignored. So I've written the code that if this is yes, only then you work on this row. So it is very important to know how to write a decision structure in Visual Basic. And for that, what we will do is we will try to do the same thing here. So I have written the same scores here, and I want the output here. So let us write a code for that. Five. So this is how you write. If, what is the name of the sheet? Sheet 7. And as a good practice, we will write the full sheet name. Dot cells. Again, cells is a better way to write as compared to range. What is my cell that I'm checking? 1, comma 1. What is the property that I'm checking? Dot value. If the value of this cell is less than 40, okay, this is the syntax. You write a then you go to the next line, and you end the if with end if. So whatever is written between if and end if will be run if the condition is satisfied. And in the formula there was also an else, right? So what happens if the condition is not satisfied? Same way you can write else. So if the condition is satisfied, this code will be run. If it is not satisfied, this code will be run. Again, another piece of syntax that you have to know. Very few things, right? Sub and sub, message box, um, the concept of variables, Excel objects, how to reference to an Excel cell sheet and so on, and if, else, and if. These are only few things that I've shown you till now. Everything else was recorded. Okay, so you guys tell me in chat what should we write here? Here. No, we are not going to show a message box. We are going to show the value of fail or pass in this cell, right? So we want fail in this case, pass in this case, and so on. I am looking for the actual line that I'm going to use here. Yeah, some of you guys are close. Yep, so that is one of the things that will work. Cells 1 comma 2 dot value equals fail. And an even better way to do it is to write the name of the sheet as well as a good practice. You'll know why. By the end of the session, you'll know why. Okay. I've just copied pasted. By the way, there is no need to put a space here. It will automatically put the space. There's no need for this to be capital. It will automatically become capital. Right? Case sensitivity is not a concern at all. But yeah, case sensitivity here is important. Whatever you are writing here will exactly get displayed. Right? Else, sorry, else, right? Let's try to run this and check. And let's try to run it line by line. Okay. And delete it. So F8. Is this value actually less than 40? Yes, it is, because the value is 20. So it will go here. Will it go here? It won't. It will straight away exit. It will not go to the else part at all. And it will end sub. So we should have the value fail here. Right? If you are to check, if you have to put fail pass for all of these cells, there's no need to write this code all over again. There is a way to run this code again and again and again, which I will show you. Right? But I hope this part is clear. This is very simple syntax. And right, and I mean, there are quite a few things that I am not even telling you at this point. Maybe we can probably plan another session for that. Okay, so basically, talking about the concept of looping, let me write a new macro. So there is a way, and you've seen the way code runs, right, from top to bottom. So there is a way to run few lines again and again. So you can make it run from here to here, and then again from here to here, and again from here to here for a few number of times. That's basically called looping. And the most basic form of a loop is for loop. There are lots of types, there are various types as well, like for, do while when, for next, for each, etc. Right? So for is a very basic loop that you have to know. This is the syntax that you need to remember. This is the last piece of syntax that you would want to know. You can use any variable x, y, z, j, k, anything, but it is a good practice to use the variables I, j, k in loops. So anybody who reads your code is used to for I or for j, something like that, right? Equals 1, to say 5. And wherever I write next, that becomes the end of the loop. So now whatever I write between for and next will loop again and again. How many times will it loop in this case? 5 times. 1 to 5. Okay. Let me show you by giving a message box I. Is this okay, or should I write I in double quotes? No. No means not okay, or no, we should not write in double quotes. It's fine. Yeah. If I write in double quotes, it will show me I every time. I as in I, right? Yeah, good, great. This means I'm referencing the variable I that was used here. So let me run this and check. Okay, yep, got it. I'll press F8 for I equal to 1 to 5. Now this line, what will I get? 1. Because the first time this loop was run, I had the value 1. Now it is going next on next. So I will auto increment from 1 to 2. Now what should I have? 2. Next time, 3. Then 4. Then 5. Will it go back? It won't go back because we have only defined it from 1 to 5. It will straight away exit and it will then end. Why did it increment only by 1? Because by default it increments only by 1. You can make it increment by 2, by 4, by 3, whatever number you want, by writing this step 2. Now it will go from 1 to 3 to 5. Right? You want to check? 1. Will it have 2? No. It will straight away have 3. Then it will have 5. Then it will exit. So the step is to basically change from default 1 to any number of any step that you want to take from this value to this value. So this is how a loop is written, and anything written between this will loop as many number of times. So what we will try to do is we will write another macro. By the way, you cannot have the same name of the macro in this module. So this will give me an error. I have to give it a new name. So if I have to run this code, how many times? 5 times. What I will simply do is I will put this in a loop for I'll write the same thing, equals 1 to 5, and at the end I will write next. Now you can see that if I write code like this, it becomes very difficult to read, right? That is the reason why we indent for better readability. It's very easy to know that this for ends here, this if ends here, right? That's the reason why we write code like this. So now if I write this code, will it give me the fail pass values here, or do we need to do something for that? Waiting for you guys to write in chat. Yeah, we need to define I. It's a very generic. Shubhankar, what exactly do we need to do? Change first line if to what? Okay, Manish Jaiswal has said cells I comma 1 dot value less than 40. Okay, So basically, this is what he is suggesting. That means when this loop runs for the first time, this I will have value 1. That means it will check the value in this cell 1 comma 1. Then when the loop runs for the second time, I will have the value 2. So this will check the value in cell A2, 2 comma 1. Then 3, then 4, then 5 comma 1. And another corresponding change to this is, if this is less than 40, then I want to write fail in that respective row only, right? Not in the first row. So you change this as well. Yes. Cells I comma 1 throughout. I comma 1, I comma 2, whatever, right? So the row has to be now I. Okay. We can run this line by line and check. F8, F8, F8. We can hover on I and check. I has the value 1. If 1 comma 1 less than 40, then it has gone here because their value was 20. Let's see if we have a fail. Yes, we have a fail here. F8, it's gone to next. I has the value 2. Now is the value in cell this less than 40? No, it's 50. So will it go here? It won't. It will straight away go to else. Else, it has given the value pass. Here you go. F8. I can straight away now, if I don't want to run it line by line, I can even press continue. The entire code has now been run. You can see my fail and pass values here. Right? So, I mean, a very small thing, probably you will never write code for this, but you need to know how to write code. That's why I chose a problem as simple. What if I increase this to more number of cells? Do I have to again and again change this from 5 to 10 or whatever, right? There should be a way to make this dynamic, right? That reads till the last row. So this is also one of the things that, I mean, I remember it now, but initially when I wrote this for the first time, I had to do a bit of research and maybe record it as well. So basically the process is, if you have to find the last row, you start from the last row of Excel in the column that you want to check in. Then you do a control up, right? You will end up in a cell and you need to get the row of that cell, the row property of that cell. So this is how I arrived at this syntax, and I like to normally call it last row as a variable, or LR equal to, and you can just I have a cheat sheet as well, which I'll share with you guys, which has some of these syntaxes written. Right? Dot end Excel up dot row. This gives me the last row by default. If I'm checking in the first column, it will give me the last row of the first column. So basically it is starting from the last row of Excel, the first column, it is doing a control up, and the cell which comes, it gives the row of that cell. You can totally remember this now, and this is something that you will end up using a lot. I use it everywhere. And we can run and check if it is giving me the last row as 10. F8, F8, F8. It is giving me the last row as 10. Right? I'll stop this. So it works properly. Right? Now all I have to do is I have to substitute this 5 with last row. Now this code will run till the last row. It doesn't matter how many rows you have. Every time you run it, it will read all the rows. We can check this. And normally what I do is at the end of my macro, I write a message box to notify the user that the macro has been run fully. I'll put a button here. my macro 7. See, you add more, you make some changes. So we've used a lot of concepts here, the concept of a variable, the concept of a loop, the concept of Excel object here, some syntax that you had to remember, and decision structures and message box. Everything has come together in this. Feel free to ask questions, don't worry about it. And I'll try to help you out in case you have any questions. Okay. So now I will, can you explain the syntax of finding last row? Yeah, sure. I mean, as I said, the actual process of finding the last row is, if you record it, you basically do a control up from the last row, right? And you end up in a row, in a cell, right? And this is how then you get the row property of this cell which you ended up in. I mean, this is a hack, to be very frank with you, but everybody uses this. So this is now sort of become a norm. You don't have to do anything, you just have to write this. Even if you remember it, it's totally fine. So I started at this cell. Rows.count is the last row of Excel and the first column. So I started with this cell, right, mentioned here. Then I did a dot end Excel up, which is the thing that got recorded. And the cell that I got, then I got the row property of that cell, which gives me the last row. Yeah. Okay. Now let me give you a problem to solve. Okay. Let me just have this. I'll create a new sheet. Okay. Let me just get rand between 0 and 100. So now what I want to do is I want to check each of these values if it is less than 40 or greater than equal to 40. If it is less than 40, I want to highlight it red. If it is greater than equal to 40, I want to highlight it green. Okay. For all of these cells. What would be your approach? Conditional formatting. Yes, the right approach. Tejas, if you're joining just now for the first time, probably you can join the 4 o'clock session. Yeah, so I mean, obviously, one of the ways is to do conditional formatting, but I want you to write a code for it. So, if you have to write a code for it, what would be your strategy? First row, first column, last column. Record macro with conditional formatting. You wouldn't record macro with conditional formatting. Normally, you would want to record to color. I mean, conditional formatting is the end-to-end functionality that has been written by Microsoft engineers, right? You don't want to use that. You want to create it yourself because your condition might be a lot more complex than this. Right? loop if else. Okay, if else, just select one cell less than 40 and more than 40, copy code and paste in for loop. Okay, lot of creative answers. uh, Loop I from across the entire range and use if. Yeah, sure, but if I'm using I'm running from top to bottom. If I have to also loop from left to right, I have to use another loop inside this loop. Right? Yeah, so two for loops is something that we would need, because I cannot change, I cannot write the I for loop 5 times. Otherwise, I'll have to write I for loop 5 times, which I don't want to do. Okay. Even if you write it once, then you will have to write 5 statements. So here what I simply do is I and let me insert a new module. There are too many macros here. My macro 8. Okay. So now this is only running from top to bottom. If you want the same thing to run from left to right as well, you write another for loop inside this. For j equals 1 to 5. And you end the j loop, sorry, here. I'll tell you how it runs first of all. I and j. I'm sure you know about how to separate variables with other variables and static text in between. So I'm just going to run this loop to show you the value of I and j, right? So I'll run one by one. F8, 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 F8. Now I has 1, j also has the value 1. See 1 comma 1. Now will this exit the j loop? No, because right now it is in the j loop and it will complete this task first, the innermost loop. So now it will automatically give the value of 2 to j, and I still is 1, because this is just still the first loop for I, 1 comma 2. Now will it again go to j? No, it won't increment because I've already done till 2. It will now exit this loop. Now it will increment I. Now what is I? 2. What is j? Again it will start from 1, right? It's a fresh run for j. So now it is 2 comma 1. Then 2 comma 2. Then again it will exit this next and it will increment the I to 3. Now 3 comma 1 and then 3 comma 2. Right? This is how nested loops run. So the way we have to do this is, again we have to have one loop that goes from top to bottom and one loop that goes from left to right. And what is the change that we will make inside this? Shouldn't we change cells? Yes, we have to. We cannot now hard code this anymore to 1, 2 or whatever. We have to write j here. Now tell me, is this right? No, I mean, since we are now checking in this entire range, we cannot write fail pass values here anywhere, right? Obviously, otherwise you'll have to write them somewhere here, which doesn't make sense anyways. So the objective is to color these cells, right? So instead of writing this, I want the cells to be colored. Now how will you do that? Dot interior. Yes, so you guys remember dot interior, but you don't even need to do that. what you do is you straight away record. So let me record adding color and use the code. Absolutely. So the first recording that I want to do is for red color. The second recording I want to do is for green color, right? And I can again go here, I can stop the recording and I can check the code. In module 2, you can see there are two sets of code that got recorded. The first one was red, the second one was green. So I will copy the red one. I will put the red one here. If it is less than 40, then the red one. Right, I'll just tab it properly. Then I'll copy the green one. I will paste it here. Now will this work properly? Last row for J. Okay. Remove selection. Yeah. So as I said, whenever you record, you get very static object, which is the selected cell normally. And then you have to make the respective change in this. So if I change this, if I replace this with the object that we are checking, which is the cell, then it will highlight that particular cell only. If I'm checking, in cell 1 comma 1, then I want that cell to be highlighted either red or green. That is the reason why I replace selection with something like this. Right? Will this work? Let's see. Let me put a button. I think it's my macro 8, not 9. Yeah, my macro 8. Okay, let us check. Oh no. So the issue is because we are checking in sheet 7. Right? These are the kind of errors that you normally get. Yeah, that's correct. And okay, by the way, one word of caution. Whenever you run a code, there is no undo after that. So if you've messed up the code, so normally what I do is I save the file before I run my code. So for example, if right, I have not messed it up yet, so I've saved the file. Now I run this. I can see that some issue happened. See, there's no way to undo from here. Undo is for resize, so there's no way to undo the operation that got performed here. All I can do is I can just close my workbook and not save changes. So remember that. Just make sure that you have backup copies before you start writing any code. Let's go and make that change. Yeah, I think we've done it. We can now run. There you go. And run it once again. Right? That's how now everything is coming together. Everything that we learned, we're trying to put it in one simple code. Now, what if we wanted to run this on multiple sheets? say this sheet 8, sheet 9, for example. Let's say I want to run it on these two sheets. I create some random data. Right? I want to run the same logic on two sheets, sheet 8 and sheet 9. I want you to tell me, how do we make changes to this code, or should we write this code twice? One for sheet 8 and once for sheet 9. Use with at the top. Need to add sheet name in sheets. Okay, no. There is no way to write sheet 8 comma sheet 9. Sheet indexing is, yeah, you're on the right track, Sushank. Anybody else? Okay, create a loop for sheets. Yeah, so you guys are getting there. Sheet I equal to sheet 8, kind of. Okay. So you remember that we in the Excel objects part, we also learned that there is this way to write the sheets, right? The index number of the sheet. This is what you use if you have to loop across sheets. This, trust me, this is very important, right? So if I have to run this code on two different sheets, what I do is I write another loop at the top for and I and j, and normally I is used for rows, j for columns, and k for sheets. K equals your sheet numbers. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Sheet 6 to sheet 7. 6 to 7. Where do I end this for? Do I end it somewhere here, or where do I end it? Last, after the last next, before message box. If I put it after the message box, then I will get the message twice, for one for each sheet. So you have to end it before the message box. And since you have added a loop, make sure you tab everything. See how many levels we are at now. We are at like 5 levels. And what change needs to be made in the code? Okay, what to do with sheet name? Sheet K. Okay, Stuti, you are almost there. So you replace this whole with the index of the sheet, which is the number of sheet, which is K in this case. Yep, Vikrant, you're right. Yes. And this K should not be in double quotes because this is a variable. Has to be without double quotes. So it will find the last row in each sheet, and then it will perform this task on each sheet. So even if I have, say, more values here, and say here as well, it will run till the last row of each sheet. And let's check. Okay, sheet 8, sheet 9, both not colored. Oh, sorry. Probably I run the wrong. My macro 8 is what we had to run. Oh, actually, I should have made a copy of it. Okay, what I'll do is I'll create another one. I macro 10. I'll remove this from here so that I can share the sheet with you guys and you'll know. Yeah, so this is now my macro 10 is what we have to run. Okay, it's colored here. It's colored here as well till the last row. That's how you automate across sheets. Okay, by the way, somebody had asked a question in between and I forgot to reply. Uh, if you have to change the name of this module, you can do that. So you can go to view, there is a properties window. Okay, it's a menace actually. I don't like to see this every time. But if I want to change this, I can change the name. Module new. You can see. Any module you can select, you can give it a name. Right? I normally don't like to see it, so I close it again. If you want, you can go to view properties window. Okay, now I will give you a small assignment to do, which will help you maybe use some of these things that we just saw. So let me call this um, final sheet. Let me call this sheet. Let me call this A. Let me call this B. So there is some data in sheets A and B. You know what? I'll just give you the same problem that I showed you, the automation that we've done. But you don't have to select another file. Let's just stick to this file and multiple sheets. Say from here. Right, I'll make this short. I'll write Durga's name. Right, so we have two sheets, and what we have to do is we have to get the values in this final sheet. What would be your approach to solving this problem? What will you loop? Okay, so not getting any answers. Are you guys able to hear me? Yes, okay. You have to only loop the sheets here. Say there are 3 sheets, you have to loop the sheets. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So 9 to 11, I will just simply loop the sheets. For k equals 9 to 11. Now for each sheet, we have to start writing, copying these values and start pasting them here. Rather than doing copy paste, let's just read the value and paste it in the final sheet. Right? So sheets final dot cells 1 comma 1. For now, let's just write 1 comma 1 dot value equals, sorry, not 1 comma 1, 2 comma 1. The first row is the header row. Which value do I want to write here? This sheet ka this value. Right? You can even say सीधा B1 भी अपन बोले तो that's fine. So sheets K dot range B1, because it is a very hard coded cell, so that is totally fine. How many cells, how many values do we want to copy? 3. So 2 comma 1, 2 comma 2, 2 comma 3. B1, B2, B3. Will this do the job? Will it read from all these sheets and put the values here? Or let's try to check. Okay, no. Say, let me write another name here. Yeah, have to increase the row. What row? I mean, why do we have to increase the row if I only had 3 rows and I mentioned those 3 rows as 3 separate lines? You don't have to forcefully use a loop, right? And that tool that I showed you, I had written those 7, 8 lines like this only. It's not wrong to write something like this. I mean, here the automation is, the magic is to get value from multiple sheets. Okay, so sorry, have to increase the row. I got it. This one. Sorry, Nishant, my bad. So every time, in this case, from whichever sheet you are extracting, every time you are just pasting on the second row. That's the problem. We will run and check. We will run and check. See, I am only able to see one value here because first we wrote this value, then we wrote this value, then we wrote this value. So the values from A and B sheets got replaced by the values in C sheet. That's the reason why this is a problem. So what you do is, in such cases, normally you have to use a variable here. Do we have a variable that we can use like we had I in that case? We don't have a variable, right? All we have is K, but K is 9, 9, 10, 11. Can we use another variable? We can, right? Say we use a variable called row number, ROWNO equals 1 at, so before we start, we give this the value 1, and every time we go into one sheet, we increment row number. How do we increment? Exactly. If you write this, row number will get the value of row number plus 1. That means first time row number is 1. So the first time this is run, row number will become 1 plus 1, which is 2. And then this will work on the second row. The next time when the loop runs again, this time row number will be 2 plus 1, which is 3. So it will now write the values in the third row. And then finally the fourth row. I'll write a message box here. Don't worry, I'm going to share the recording, in case I'm going a bit too fast, because I think we have to end in 5 minutes. This is the last bit of, code that we will write for today. So yeah, let me check. Here you go. Right. So this is how we used another variable inside the loop and we incremented that variable. And then we used it. That's how you solve such a problem. So I guess that's the end of today's session. So I had to make sure that you guys are able to understand the basics, so how to write some basic code, but at the same time, I think you can now write a code where you have to uh, get consolidated data from multiple sheets. You have to create multiple sheets and put data in those. I think those kind of things now you'll be able to solve with today's session. Right. Now that we have 5 minutes, we can probably open the floor to questions. If you want, you can unmute and ask, or you can maybe, I think the best thing would be to raise hand and then I can call out and then you can ask, or you can just type in chat. Anything works. We can use if else as well for any condition which we might add. Yeah, I mean, Durga, if you had to use any if else here, you could have. In per se, I did not see anything that needed an if else here. It was just copying the values from these sheets to this sheet. But yes, I mean, depending on the condition, if you have to, then yes, you can just put an if else anywhere. Okay, one second. Manish, I missed your question. Shouldn't we write row number equal to row number plus 1 in the last line of the loop? Yes, Manish, we can do that. What you are saying is to write this value here after this. So even this is possible. So every time my loop is run, in the end I increment. So I start with 2. So the first time this will have the value 2, then it will increment from 2 to 3, and the next time it will have 3. So both ways it can be done. That's a very good point, Manish. Okay. Annapurni has asked, could we use the same concept if we want to create macros in spreadsheets? Sorry, I did not really understand. What do you mean macros in spreadsheets? Maybe you can unmute and ask, or maybe you can detail it here. Okay, I'm waiting for the question elaboration, or somebody else has another question. If we are working on Google spreadsheets, uh, no, Google spreadsheets, first of all, I'm not sure if they've introduced macros recently, but till about recently, there was no way to automate Google spreadsheets. Uh, and I have, I think, in the past also tried to directly automate values in an Excel through Google spreadsheets. Even that was not possible at that point, but maybe I've not tried this for the last year or so, so I'm not sure if something recently has got introduced. But normally, if I have to use any automation, what I do is I download the spreadsheet as an Excel and then I write the code there. That's how I automate. Yeah, cool. We have couple of minutes. If you have any further questions, feel free. Can you name major applications of macros? I know one such a which shell function. Sorry, but shell function, as far as I know, shell function, it's used to open files and so on, right? Shell. That's why shell is used in VBA. Now, it's not just using Excel to automate, macros to automate your Excel spreadsheets. You can actually even do a bit more than that. For example, if I have to get values from a browser, from a web browser, even I can automate that too through Excel. In fact, what I'll do is I'll send you guys an example to maybe test it out. Um, so if there is a static, if there are some static pages, some static URLs that can be created, you can actually open each URL and then get some data out of it. Those kind of things can be done. You can also work with other types of files. So from Excel, I can open Word files, I can open text files, I can copy data from those text files into Excel and vice versa. I can convert sheets to PDF. Anything and everything that you think is possible can be done through Excel, through VBA. And VBA is not just restricted to Excel. There is also a VBA in PowerPoint, in Word, in Outlook as well. For example, if you write some code in Outlook, it can even read each one of your emails and you can write some logic for it. For example, say if a lot of people are sending you a particular type of email with an attachment, and you don't want to read each of those emails and download the attachment. You want to write a code that if this says so and so is my subject line, then straight away download this attachment into this folder. Those kind of rules you can write in VBA. I've done that. So using Excel, you can actually do a lot more things than just automating Excel spreadsheets. Is it possible to remotely change VBA code in the Excel? By taking remote, yes. You cannot have a VBA code in a shared sheet. And if somebody, so in a shared sheet, if somebody is already working on that sheet, you cannot make any VBA changes in that. So that is not possible, Prashant. App version upgrade. Yeah, I understood. I know where you're coming from. Uh, it's not totally impossible to do that. I mean, what you can do is, I have done this actually, but it's very complex. I had a backend server with a SQL database, and every time somebody would open the Excel, I would make a query call to that database and check the version. And if the version had increased from 1 to 2, then I would forcefully ask the person to download by giving a download link, and that file cannot be used. So those kind of things you can do, but it's extremely like high level. I've done that when we sold an Excel tool to a number of clients. We had to do the version management for that. Yep, it's a very interesting space. Can we create a macro library or something so that we can import macros in any workbook we want? Uh, you can import modules directly, but normally what I do is you can import, export, do all those kind of things. But what I do is I normally keep these in a notepad. So wherever I want, I just insert a new module and I copy paste. That's what I like to do. But yes, you can even import macros, import the entire module. Uh, Macros are exclusive to each workbook. So I can only run these macros if the workbook is open, if this workbook is open. But I can run this from any other workbook as well. So for instance, if say from file 1 I want to run that code, I can go to macros here. It will show me the macros of the other file as well. See, VBA training session file. So it is possible to run the macros from another file if the source file is open. And as I said, there is an option of creating an add-in, which obviously cannot be shown at this stage, but it's very convenient to have an add-in, write some basic functionalities there, and use the functionality on any open workbook. But yeah, I can probably maybe send you a note of that about that, and then you can look it up later. Right, so we are past our time. I think we can end this session. What I'll do is I'll send the file, this file to you and few other files as well, which I showed you, and you can continue to explore further. And we'll also share a recording by end of today. Cool. All right. Thank you so much. I hope it was worthwhile. I know it was a bit heavy, but look at the recording and go through it slowly. I'm sure if you've skipped something, you'll be able to catch up on the skip part. How to get in touch? You can send me an email. You have my email ID, all of you. Send me an email anytime. Sharing my number would be criminal. I mean, I might get too many calls. So just write to me and then we can connect on WhatsApp or any way you want. Great. Cool. Thank you, everyone, and all the best. And look forward to being in touch.